Welcome to the But Did You Die podcast. This is Darren Boot Clark coming to you live from the main streets of Ilago through Zoom. And today we will be talking with Curtis Swisher and Vicki Kirby, who are with Refuge for Women. And that is an organization that helps women in the aftercare from getting after they've gotten out of human sex trafficking, and the like. And it's a very, very big program with big goals, and
Yes.
they do a lot of big stuff. And so when I got introduced to them through Missionaries Through Hope, Stephanie said, you need to look at this group. They're really good. They're really good. They're doing a lot of good work. I checked into them, and I donated to them, and then Vicki reached out and said thank you, and we got to talking, and then she introduced me to Curtis as well, and we started talking. And this program is very passionate about anti-human trafficking and putting a stop to one of the most vile, grotesque things
Yes.
on the earth. So without further ado, I'm going on rambling. I need to let you guys be the feature. Welcome to the show, Vicki and Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be
here.
here.
You bet. Well, let's start with you, Vicki. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into interested and involved in Refuge for Women.
Well, I've spent a lot of my volunteer life and professional life involved with nonprofits, and particularly with issues that affected women.
Mm-hmm.
So on the professional side, it was something that really attracted me, but also I felt really called to this. I had I have a friend named Mary, who is our visionary.
Okay.
And Mary really felt that the Lord was telling her that this particular house should be a house for sex trafficking. And I was kind of like for women who had escaped from sex trafficking.
Right.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
and I was kind of like, you go, Mary. And as Mary prayed and was involved and prayed and others prayed, I became more and more interested in what was going on. And at the point where there was a benefactor who actually purchased this house on this group's behalf, then I got really involved. And the more I learned, the more passionate I became about how terrible the problem is, and the need for solution and restoration. Women who have been caught in the sex trafficking trap can't just walk away and have everything be okay. It is a long, hard journey, and it's very difficult for them to do it by themselves.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I got involved.
Okay. And Curtis, what about yourself?
Well, my wife and I have been supporting international organizations associated with aftercare and rescue from human sex trafficking for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
But there wasn't a local outlet for my volunteer service. At least I wasn't aware of one. All the time there's stuff going on in Houston I was completely oblivious to. But International Justice Mission, Project Rescue in India, and then Mountain Child in Nepal. So when I was in Nepal, I actually met the executive director of Mountain Child and heard his story about how he started it. He's a U.S. guy, and he was a mountain climber, and he was out on a trek one time, and a couple of guys were leading a group of young girls down a mountainside. So he asked the guide about that, and then he found out what was going to happen to those girls. They were going to be trafficked into the brothels in India, and he just had a breakdown on the mountain. And God called him to start that. So we've been supporting that financially for about a decade. And then last year, well, it was actually back in 2015 or 16, I was in the prayer meeting with Mary when she received this into her heart, that this particular house, which was no longer being used in ministry, was to be used for women in this situation. And she just held on to that through her husband experiencing a spinal cord injury, and she wasn't able to do anything with it. But then there's a lot more to the story that we can tell as the podcast goes on. But
Yeah.
I was listening to Mary all along the way as she would talk to people and tell us about it. And eventually I got involved, and there's more to that story that you'll hear.
Sure. Great. Well, thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about the program and Refuge for Women. Who would like to
Vicki is the expert on all that, so she can speak to that right off the top of her head.
I think one of the things that it helped me to understand as I got involved is that the battle against sex trafficking has to be fought on many fronts.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first step is awareness. And that's a lot of like what this is doing,
Right.
This podcast is doing is awareness. And then there's prevention. There are groups that are really working on pornography and law enforcement groups and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
doing prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's
talking to high school and junior high kids.
Yeah. Then there's rescue,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's this the end of that is long-term aftercare, where it's individual, it's long. We know that it is a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
So our program is a 9 to 12 month program. And like you said, there are 3 phases. The first phase is just crisis management. Every woman who comes is in crisis, and every crisis is different. So the first phase is just making them feel safe, being sure they are safe, helping to deal with all kinds of problems. Many of them don't have IDs, don't have driver's licenses, all kinds of issues.
Medical issues.
Sure.
Issues.
Yeah. God.
Curtis and I guess it was last summer, went to visit another one of the Refuge for Women houses, and we met a young girl named Chastity. And Chastity had been rescued out of Florida. Her family were in the Haitian gangs, and Chastity had been trafficked when she was 9.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
When
by her family.
By her family. So when Chastity first got to the house, she wouldn't sleep in a bed because bad things happen in beds.
Yep.
She slept behind the sofa for weeks. And so that's the first phase, is just getting the women stable, getting them counseling, getting them medical care, getting them to where they feel safe. And once that's in place, then you can start working on the second phase. And the second phase is just giving them skills, life skills, job skills. A lot of the women were trafficked very early, and so they didn't graduate from high school. They may need to get their GED. When they are traumatized like that, a lot of their development sometimes stops.
Yes.
And so they need life skills.
I was gonna say.
So, learning to cook, just learning to take care of themselves, just money management, all kinds of life skills, and getting their education so that then they can move on and get some job training and be prepared to actually live in the world and support themselves.
It's like they're on the brink of existence. I mean, that's really where they're at.
Exactly.
I'm thinking Jungle Book, right? Somebody that's lived in the jungle, and they live by the law of the jungle in a very dark, dreary, hard life at I mean, 9, you
Yeah,
know,
9.
Right.
I didn't even know how to turn on the
Yeah.
lights at 9, you know?
I know.
No.
I
How do you
know.
compute that?
And a lot of it
Mm,
has been survival. What they've
yeah.
learned is just, what do I have to do to survive?
Mhm.
And so just that period of time is probably the longest period of the 3 phases, is just going from crisis management to getting skills. They get counseling all along, and it has to be trauma informed, specialized counseling. And then the third phase is where they actually work out in the world. They still live in the house,
Mhm.
but they have jobs and they have accountability and they come and go. And then the goal for Refuge for Women is to even offer an additional year of transitional housing,
Great.
where it's really more like guided independence.
Mhm.
And we're not to that yet. That we will hope to eventually get there. Right now, we're trying to get in place the long-term aftercare program, but making that transition out into independence with accountability and structure, and just others who care about them and walk beside them and are willing to help them and really want to see these women become who God meant for them to be, and not use and abuse them like all the other people who've been in their lives. That's really the goal of the 3-phase program.
It's like they've got this newfound freedom and they don't know how to live and exist in it, right?
That's right.
And this is kind of a guided program of love, compassion, and care,
Right.
uh, Christian based, that is showing them the way of living
Absolutely.
to be, and not just surviving but thriving.
And our goal, of course, is that they come to know the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everyone will, and we
No.
certainly welcome everyone into the program, no matter if they have a faith-based background or what it is.
Yeah.
But we really know that coming to know the Lord is the true key to success.
Oh yeah. I mean,
But
this is how y'all were called to the program,
that's
Right.
exactly right.
right?
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
if we don't do it, if the church doesn't do it, it's probably not going to get done, or not going to be done properly.
Right.
The
Right.
statistics are just heartbreaking. The average age of a girl being trafficked is around 13.
Mm-hmm.
She's in junior high.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Curtis, can you tell us a little bit about? Let's transition a little bit into, and then we'll bounce back into the refuge. Give us a brief, a couple minute synopsis of what are the statistics, because like you said, you knew it internationally, but you didn't know it locally in the United
Right.
States, and then specifically Houston area, Galveston area, Brazoria County. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what we've read is that 92% of women who are in the life, that's what it's called, the life,
Mm-hmm.
would get out if they could,
Sure.
but they don't know how to survive otherwise. 92% would get out, but only about 1% actually will.
Right.
And those who get out of the life, if they don't have proper aftercare like we're describing, 80% will go back.
Sure.
That is just heartbreaking. But in our program, if they graduate,
Mm-hmm.
not all of them will. Some of them will walk away. It's all voluntary. They can stay or they can leave. They can leave
Sure.
at any time. And if they misbehave through violence or whatever,
Yeah.
then they will be evicted, basically, in a as kind of way as possible, with the opportunity to come back later.
Mm-hmm.
But if they graduate and if they stay connected, 92% of them will make it. They won't go back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this aftercare program has been around for about 10 years. This
Mhm.
particular one with Refuge for Women. We have 5 sites nationally and 2 more starting up, one in San Diego and here in Southeast Texas. So we have a national organization that already knows the ropes. We're going to be using their curriculum. They've been a great support to us. We would probably be 2 or 3 years behind at least on opening the house, even purchasing the house,
Sure.
without their guidance, assistance, and so forth. So we're in a national umbrella organization, and is their policy is that when they accept a woman into the program, they move her to out of state, to one of the safe houses, to get her as far away from her trafficker and her dysfunctional family as possible. And so only recently have they started modifying that a bit with the pandemic, having somebody from Texas go to the North Texas site, but that's rare. And so when the pandemic is over, we'll be going back to that policy. So the women that we will serve in Southern Brazoria County will not come from our county. They won't even come from the Houston area. They will come from out of state. But the way that we serve the people in the local area is that we will make referrals to our national organization and get them out of Houston, get them out of Brazoria County to a safe place. So that's how we're going to serve our local women, which is always a question we get from people.
Right.
Who want to know, what about our girls? Well,
yeah,
we're going to serve them in an indirect way.
I know Houston, this area is kind of a hub, an epicenter for trafficking. And yeah, I mean, I'm digging into it. It's a dark, I mean, you gotta be ready, and
Yes.
and there's such a need. And I think just education in the community is probably a huge need that is very underserved,
Yes.
because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, and they run from it. And I did it first.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I found out about it 6 years ago at an Easter Sunday service, and they were talking about Elijah Rising, and
Yes.
great organization. But I was like, why are we talking about this on Easter Sunday and at a huge community service at a sunrise service? I mean, I was like, this is ridiculous. But then, Team Never Quit. That's a military organization that there's a bunch of ex special forces that are in this to get the kids and the adults out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And they provide a great service on the front lines. They're the door kickers. There's the guys and gals that go in and make it happen.
Right.
And like Vets for Child Rescue and pick one, right? And they're on the front lines, and I heard about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was called to it, and then my family was impacted by human trafficking. And then I just said, okay, I've been running into this wall enough. It's time for me to get involved. And so that's how I got into it. But it's something I'm passionate about, and I've been doing this for about a year now. And my wife just saw Out of the Shadows and Contraland and recently, and she's been helping with my Coffee to the Rescue thing. But she, I was involved, but she got so sick to her stomach she couldn't sleep for 3 days. And then she's called to it because she's like, damn, there's nothing, we got to do something. I said, well, welcome aboard. Let's get, and I think that's that transition that people got to go through, because these women and these kids
with this too.
Yeah, I mean, they're victims, and if you can help, you got to help the people that can't help themselves, and help the victims of the victims.
Right.
I mean, there's such a need, and y'all are doing such good stuff.
That's right.
Okay.
If you want to hear another really terrible statistic,
please.
Last year, 2018, there were 400 women rescued by these. There's a kind of a coalition of groups that will go rescue a woman.
Mm-hmm.
There were 400 women rescued in the Houston area. And in the Houston area, there are only about 80 beds.
Oh my gosh.
In the whole United States, there's less than 1,000 beds. So
to help aftercare,
part of the tragedy is to get someone out and then not have a place where they can get help.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can see why they'd return back. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah. Nowhere to go.
They come up for air, but they can't swim.
Right. That's exactly right. And they have that's the only thing they know how to survive at. And so it is a dark, terrible tragedy.
Yeah, but there's people that are shining a light, right? And
There's people that are shining a light, and there's
and
a lot of people.
yeah,
There's a huge tribe in the Houston area of organizations and people who have come together under various coalitions, and it's very exciting. We're actually grateful to be here in the Houston area, because even though
Right.
Houston receives more phone calls for the National Anti-Trafficking hotline than any other city,
oh
we
wow,
actually have a lot of people on the front lines and in support areas.
Right.
We have a Brazoria County United Front Coalition. There's other coalitions within the Houston area that we're a part of, and we're
Right.
excited about that.
that's awesome. Yeah, we were talking earlier, Curtis, and I'm looking forward to meeting those people.
Yes.
You know, I think I didn't know about it, but it's kind of, it's like I said, that part of it is underserved, right? So,
Yeah.
Right.
so
Exactly.
back
Yeah,
to
you want to get people from Freedom Church Alliance on your program and others.
Right.
Yeah.
There's lots of Unbound Houston with Carrie Taylor. There's lots of people
Yep.
who are fighting this.
Yeah.
Jennifer
That-
Holman with HAT. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, and I told you about Curtis about Second Cup, the coffee.
Right.
Yeah, it's a coffee shop that is all about stopping human trafficking and aftercare. They teach women and people that have been involved in human trafficking how to be baristas and
Uh-huh.
give them a
Right.
life skills, right? So where they can
Right.
go out and get a
Exactly.
job. So yeah, so Refuge for Women in Brazoria County. How many beds will you guys have?
We will start out with 4.
Okay.
The standard for Refuge for Women, other houses is 6.
Mm-hmm.
6 at a time. Our house is a large house.
Supersized.
And so we eventually feel like we may be able to have as many as 8 at a time. But we also have enough room that we feel like we'll be able to also offer some of the transition living services. So hopefully in the end, we'll have about 12 women
Awesome.
there at a time.
Yeah, the reason it's standard for 6 across the country in our houses is that's a 3-bedroom home.
Oh wow.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we typically buy, is a 3-bedroom home, but we have a 6-bedroom.
Nice.
Actually, there's more than that, but we're repurposing some of the rooms into a counseling room and a staff bedroom because we have overnight and weekend staff.
Sure. Sure. Good. So it's going to be a full 24-hour facility.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Not just
Yeah.
for living, but for counseling and
Yeah,
security.
it's a residential program. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. And I understand you've got some acreage, so you can do gardens and.
Yes.
We have almost 5 acres, so a garden and an orchard. We have a master naturalist on our team, and
Yes.
so she and others are scheming on what we're going to do. We're also going to be working on a social enterprise, which will be teaching women how to develop some business skills. And we're looking at there's a Tracy Farms who has honey, and so they can help us with teaching the women how to bottle honey and how to sell it and for profit. And
Right.
also there's some things you can do with the beeswax commercially.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're looking at what we can do there. So we're very excited about this potential partnership. One of our other houses, they make leather purses. They're just starting this up. They already have like 100 people who are saying, I want one,
That's
They
awesome.
haven't even made them yet. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just getting started. And then we have in Kentucky, they started last year making candles. And
Okay.
so this is all just getting off the ground. We're very excited about it, and we'll see where it goes.
So how long before? Okay, so 2 things. How long before you guys launch, and what are you needing?
We've been delayed about 3 months by the pandemic.
Okay.
So we were expecting to launch in the 3rd quarter. It's going to be the 4th quarter probably.
Okay. Sure.
Right.
And so we don't know exactly. It's going to depend upon how fast our support comes in.
Okay.
So we can move as fast as the money comes in. We need to hire staff. We need to buy a vehicle. We need a security system, which would be alarms and cameras and fencing, those kind of things to protect our staff and our women. So we're looking to the Lord every day.
Sure.
Right.
When I feel like we're the Israelites in the wilderness. When that cloud moves, which is our funding, then we can move. So
Okay.
that's what we're looking for. We have a wonderful room sponsorship program that people can get involved with. That would be, they sponsor not the furnishing of the room. This is an annual thing. They sponsor the activity that takes place in that room that contributes to the healing of the woman and getting her ready for her life
Okay.
after our program. And so I really like this because it's a focal point. People need something tangible and concrete. It's a focal point for their effort, their money, and their prayer. That there's women who's living in that room. They can sponsor a bedroom, for example. There's 2 women going to be staying in that room. And there will be a plaque on the wall and the whole bit to acknowledge their contribution. So that's going to be the backbone of some of our funding support. The churches have been wonderful to us. In 8 months last year, Darren, we received $400,000.
Wow. That's awesome.
That was all prayed in. The prayer is the foundation of this work. It was birthed in prayer, and I'm absolutely convinced it will be sustained in prayer. And there were 2 churches who gave us about half of that total.
Shazam. Wow. That's awesome.
Yes. And one of those was completely unexpected and off our radar. And here it was.
God was just,
You got to ask for it to get it, right?
yeah. And he was just so amazing and so faithful.
So what is your financial goal to get launched? I mean, let's put it out there. How much are you looking to raise?
$200,000 in the bank before we can launch.
Okay.
And we have about 60 right now.
Okay. So
that's the gap.
A lofty goal in the COVID-19 era. Not which is an extra challenge, but nothing worth having comes easy. And I think that's right. My hat says never quit. So, don't give up. We're just getting started here. And
it's not our strength that's going to provide this. We believe the Lord wants us to do this ministry, or we wouldn't be involved.
Right.
And he paves his streets with gold. Yep. So he has everything we need. It's just a matter of asking for it and waiting for his timing, and then doing. I like it. I like the way that Abby Germer said it. Abby's the city director in the North Texas House. She says, "I wake up every day. We do the very best we know how, and we leave the outcome to the Lord."
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, what? How do people find you? How can they donate? What?
Okay. Well, our website is www.rfwtxgulfcoast.org, and there's a donate button on there. There's an address on there if someone would rather just send us a check. Sure. We have a Facebook page. It's actually part of the Refuge for Women group. We're the Refuge for Women Texas Gulf Coast group.
Right.
So they can find us on Facebook.
And how would they find you on Facebook? Refuge for Women Gulf Coast group?
Yes. Refuge for Women Texas Gulf Coast group.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how they find us.
There's other opportunities to get involved with us with volunteering. We also have a monthly prayer calendar that they can request.
Okay.
And then I've mentioned the room sponsorship, and then we need monthly sponsors. We're going to call them legacy builders or freedom fighters or something like that. Abolitionists. I don't know what we're going to call them, but we're going to have something more colorful than just monthly donors.
Sure.
Yeah, they can find all that on our website. Vicki, could you send Darren that information?
I will.
Afterwards, so he can attach it in his show notes and make sure we get all the letters correct. Because I've given the wrong address. Address to people before.
Yeah, I was going to make sure that we put it on there.
Yeah, I will.
And no donation is too big or too small. I assume you'll take.
Absolutely.
Tell about the one monthly donor we have, Vicki.
We have a monthly donor who sends in $5 a month.
Awesome.
And that is awesome. And then we have people who've given us thousands of dollars. But whatever the Lord puts on your heart is what
absolutely
we are delighted to have.
Every dollar matters.
That's right.
Yes, it does.
So
Well, I tell you what, thank you so much for coming on. I think Refuge for Women is a heck of a cause, and you guys are doing great work. I know it's going to go big. Um, I definitely want to stay in touch and have you
oh
back on
yes,
whenever it launches, right? And we can hopefully
yes.
we can do a show from the house
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah.
before
Yeah.
honoring all privacy and everything.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited I know this is going to be good stuff. Houston, obviously, there's a huge need in the area,
Huge need.
and hopefully this won't be your only house, right? You can
Yeah.
do more. And it's such a great thing. Curtis and Vicki, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and we'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks
Darren.
so much.
God bless you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.